Welcome to ASCCSA 2015, the second annual Stakeholders Conference on Child Sexual Abuse. I would like to welcome the founder of the foundation, Mr. Rahul Bose, to please come and start the seminar.
Hi. I think it's taken for granted that we will always live in turbulent times. And these times are no different. Whether it's political, whether it's social, it seems that this is a cross we have to bear, at least in our lifetimes. And so, the only way to combat that is to do what all of you do. In your own ways, you are taking a few people towards the light. We started ASCCSA last year as a new punctuation in what Suchismita Bose, the director of the foundation, and I talked about 8 years ago. 8 years ago. So I was looking for a new director of the foundation, and I thought Suchi was. Do you all know who Suchismita Bose is, the lady who came up here? She's the director of the foundation. No relation to me. Far too intelligent, but not as good looking. So I asked Suchi, I said, when I was hiring Suchi, I said, Suchi, why, if you came onto the foundation, and at the time it was about education of children, which is our other initiative called REACH, Restoring Equality Through the Advancement of Children. And she said, I would like to work on child sexual abuse. So I said, look, our charter is to forge a world without discrimination. Where do we... And it became very clear to us that the discrimination that we talk about in CSA is directed towards yourself. The survivor invariably directs the discrimination. It must have been my fault. I must have done something. And so the first thing I thought of was that if I can't start in these turbulent times, making Suchi happy and making her move toward the light, how on earth can I expect her to do that for other people? So we brought on CSA, which is very close to my heart because I made a film that involved CSA. Everybody Says I'm Fine was 15 years ago. And that's where it started from. So when we came to in our sort of this punctuation mark I was talking about, and we talked last year about doing something, I said, there's a well-worn cliche that every single professional community in this country is riven with rivalry, jealousy, and petty gossip. And it's no different, I have heard, in the NGO community. And I said, well, I believe that's a crock of crap. We just have to bust it. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to get everybody together. And if it means that we erase our logos from everywhere, it makes no difference to me. It's not at all about the foundation. But let's just get together. Because in the research I did, I found that there was approximately, according to government standards, government records, 400,000 NGOs work on education in this country. And the number of NGOs that we could count last year before we had our first inaugural ASCCSA was 19. And the magnitude of the problem, if you go by 52%, is just, it's the biggest silent epidemic in the country. So I said, look, it's impossible for this to happen. We have to get all 19 of us together, share, exchange, help, this word network, whatever it might be, talk, lose your egos, just get in there and start working together. And of course that takes time. And I remember very clearly, I'm sure lots of you were here from last year, and I said the same thing. I said, it's going to be difficult on the first day. Just human beings are just not used to getting out of their comfort zones. But once we do, and we learn that, oh, you have the same preoccupations as me, and your loves and likes and dislikes and frustrations, and suddenly there's this surge of energy because you're so happy to meet someone who has the ideology that you have. I said that's going to happen. We just have to wait and let it happen. So what's happened in this year? I mean, it's one of those things where nothing is target based, and this is not a corporate seminar where you talk about Q1, Q2, and Q3. It's about what did we think would happen last year. Well, what we thought would happen last year was people would talk, people would share, people would start to discuss frustrations, methodologies, and we did. And it was wonderful over those 2 days to be in this room. It was wonderful just to listen to really, really bright, committed, passionate people speaking to us, to our own, to people who are involved. This is not something that's going to be paraded in front of the press or in front of a politician for an award. This is just us talking and saying, how can we, how can we make this bigger? How can we make this deeper? How can we make this richer? All our efforts. And so Janvi and Suchi were telling me, is Taha here? So Taha Jodiawala and two others who signed up for ASCCSA last year, they have started an NGO called Rubaru, having sort of gotten the impetus from us getting together last year. They'll be presenting today for about 10 minutes. Aramb, are the people from Aramb here? Yes. Oh, what wonderful. So Aramb had promised to start an online resource center for all of us, and they have. And you'll be presenting tomorrow, right? So that's awesome. A lot of modules have been exchanged, and I'm sure Janvi and Suchi have all the details. Networking and partnerships have been formed. So while in the past year, very clearly, and every single time I've met with at the foundation, which is once every couple of weeks, and we keep talking about how to take this further, I keep asking, did you send the findings of the last year's ASCCSA to everybody? What's been the feedback? What are people saying? All of that. It's clear that now there is a solid moment where this community gets together physically, and many, many moments where this community gets together virtually. Not that it wasn't happening before the last ASCCSA, but it's just, in my head, I see it as a more formalized, at least a process that the foundation has its fingers on. I'm just going to suggest something for the next 365 days. And I'm sure almost all, if not all of you, have already started working, thinking about this. And that is, we started the work at the foundation looking not just at survivors, but at looking at prevention. And I think a lot of what goes on in this country, in this field, is in working with survivors. And I just would like us to start in a more imaginative way looking at prevention. There's pedagogy and there's this and there's that, but can we come up with some really, really unbelievably interesting ways in which we address that issue, which is how to get people to listen to something with the intent of prevention. And there are many, many ways, whether it's urban infrastructure or whether it's getting into schools. I'm sure, as I said, most, if not all of you have given this a thought. But I just thought, as opposed to healing, can there be the same kind of rigor applied to prevention? And if it is, great. I'd love to hear about it in the coming year. In these 2 days, we have all our workshops fixed and all our panels fixed. But I just want to put it out there. It's really what's the word? It is the purest gesture of philanthropy when the Bajaj Group comes in. They came in last year, they come in this year, because there's nobody from the press here. This is not going to make the newspapers. This is not going to be on television. That's just not the foundation's way at all. And so whenever we go to the Bajaj Group, it's almost like saying this money is going to go into doing an enormous amount of good, but as far as publicity goes, it's going to go into a dark well of nothingness. It's just totally true. And Meenal and Neeraj Bajaj, they have never said no. And it is entirely true that if they didn't step in, we wouldn't be here. We would do it in some other way. We might meet at Azad Maidan at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and, sit and chat. But it wouldn't happen like this. So I don't even consider them sponsors or partners. Sponsors is commercial, partners is deeply involved in the initiative, neither of which is true. But just human beings who just say, this is important. And you're doing great work, and just go ahead and do it. So I know they aren't here. So it's not even that I'm trying to, flatter them. I just think it's so important that we have people like this, and those are the most successful partnerships that I think one should create in the NGO community with the corporate sector. And I finally want to end with Suchismita Bose, Anjana. Okay, it's Rajasthani. What would I know? And Jahnavi. Where's Jahnavi? There she is, Jahnavi Doshi. You know, I'm sure all of you know them. Do you? I mean, have you interacted at some point with them? Because they had 2 days of workshops before this. So it's very it's very fashionable to call somebody a warrior, but in my opinion, a warrior is someone who has the greatest love, compassion, passion, a sense of a deep sense of peace, stubbornness, resilience, indefatigable idealism. You know, these are the qualities that you turn around and say, I turn around and say, that person's it's just a warrior for CSA or whatever it might be. And I cannot emphasize strongly enough how magnificent these two women are. It's astonishing. Their grace, their civility, combined with they're deeply stubborn. They're really, really hardcore when it comes down to getting what they want. And their level of the rigor that they put into understanding, studying, all of that stuff, which I find really boring. It's amazing the kind of work they do. This could not, will not ever happen if we don't have people like this in the organization. And the other half of the foundation is run by Anokhi Parekh and Anupriya and Manali. Manali is here, in fact, cross-fertilizing across the two initiatives. And it's the same thing there. So it's a remarkable time. It's a remarkable time. If there can be 5 people like this in one organization, then there must be many more everywhere else. People who exemplify in so many ways the best that you would want any human being to have in terms of qualities. I don't want to thank you. I really don't want to thank you. I just want to put it out there that you guys are very special. Enjoy the 2 days. Thanks.